What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about the Laerdal Tunnel. So, from what I understand, this is the longest tunnel in the world, and it's in Norway. So, here in the United States, we don't have that many tunnels, and the tunnels that we do have are very short and boring. So, today, I really want to learn about this crazy long Norwegian tunnel and what it's for and how you guys even built this. So, let's take a look.
But travelling northward from the Seven Mountains of Bergen toward the picturesque city of Trondheim, you might be surprised when one of the rocky tunnels you drive through just keeps on going and going
Oh
and going.
my
At a total
God.
length of just over 24.5 kilometres, Norway's Laerdal Tunnel is the longest road tunnel in the world.
Oh my God. 15 miles? 15 miles? I think the longest tunnel I've ever been in was like 1 mile. And I thought that was long. I mean, it would take you like 10 or 15 minutes to drive through this tunnel, right? I can't even imagine how big that is. It's kind of scary being under the rock for that long, or I don't know. I'm sure it's safe, but so I think they said this connects Trondheim and Bergen, I think?
Eerily beautiful, carefully designed, and built to serve the needs of the people travelling through it, the tunnel is a fantastic example of human factors engineering done right.
Yeah, that is freaking unbelievable. Okay, the need. Yes, why did you do this? What
In
was
order
the
to
need?
understand why the Laerdal Tunnel needed to exist at all, we've got to account for the unique demands of driving in the world's northernmost regions. The area of Norway
Okay.
where the tunnel was built is a mountainous landscape pockmarked with fords and natural boundaries.
Right.
Beautiful, absolutely, but also a bit of a pain to navigate.
Right. That's why. Norway has a lot of tunnels, right? And it's basically because of your crazy landscape. It's beautiful, but you got all these mountains and valleys and water and fjords, and it's really cool, but it sounds like it makes it difficult to drive places, right?
During the 1990s, the Norwegian Parliament was in the process of trying to make this area safer, cheaper, and easier to move through, building a new highway that would be the main artery between Bergen, Norway's second largest city, and Oslo, the capital and largest city. But one particular zone of the highway, situated between the small towns of Årland and Laerdal, was proving to be especially thorny to work with. The
Oh, this is really about connecting Bergen to Oslo, not Bergen and Trondheim. But anyway, it looks like there's an area called Laerdal. And Årland? I'm not very good with Norwegian geography, I gotta be honest, as you can tell. But basically, Norway wanted to make it easier for people to travel out of Oslo to these places like Bergen, and this one section in particular was very, very difficult.
The roads in this area were especially unreliable, partly due to their narrowness and the high likelihood of bad weather during the colder months, and partly because of a particular risk of rockfalls. And fun fact about Norwegians, they actually tend to be generally against getting their cars crushed by boulders, so that just wouldn't do. But the terrain would also have made any large-scale earth-moving operation difficult, as the existing infrastructure was not suitable to get heavy machinery where it would need to go. Finally, the area
Okay.
between the two towns was mostly empty and possessed stunning natural beauty, not the sort of thing that Norway wanted to spoil by running a highway through it. The answer to this, of course, was to build a tunnel, and both then and now, tunneling is an area where Norway holds a particular expertise.
So you didn't want to do a train, you didn't want to do some ugly road, even though it probably would have been like a beautiful road. I've seen some roads in Norway, like pictures and stuff. They're actually very beautiful. You could have done a road, but you did a tunnel. You're just like, why not the world's longest tunnel? That's what Norwegians thought.
But this particular one would have some unique demands, considering its length. Norway is ahead of the field in a lot of ways when it comes to this sort of engineering, but perhaps nowhere more so than their keen awareness of the importance of human factors engineering. That is, not just building something, but building it in a way that reflects the characteristics and limitations of the people who are going to use it.
That's very thoughtful. I feel like we don't really have such a humanistic approach to things here in America. The Norwegians are very thoughtful about what exactly does this road need to do, who is it for, what do they need. That's obviously a fantastic philosophy to have.
Norway understood that in their super long tunnel, this would be especially important. After all, driver attentiveness, fatigue, claustrophobia, or unexpected crises could all lead to an emergency situation where first responders might take a long time to arrive.
That's true. Oh my god. My instinct is to be like, a tunnel 15 miles long is kind of scary. Like, if you need help, or if you're in trouble, or I don't know. I'm sure it's fine, but Americans, we're just not used to that kind of thing.
By designing a tunnel that got ahead of those issues, Norway stood a better chance at reducing the risks involved with sending traffic through such a unique space. A team of experienced psychologists worked closely with engineers to design the tunnel, which was expected to take about 20 minutes in total to traverse. Because
20 minutes to go through a tunnel. This is unbelievable.
Because of the high-speed traffic that passes through, the tunnel had to be designed so that passengers could see ahead of them for at least 1,000 meters at any point, but keeping them alert would also be another problem entirely.
It looks like you guys also had to put lighting, like artificial lighting, through the entire thing as well.
The team used simulations to figure out what kind of lighting levels worked best in keeping people's focus while illuminating the road, and how to make the road curve, rise, and fall enough that someone would have to keep paying attention while operating their vehicle and still maintain visibility.
Oh my god. You guys are next level thinking about this. This is why Norwegians have a reputation as being like some of the best tunnel builders. You guys think about crafting the tunnel so people pay attention to the driving. I have never thought about that with designing tunnels. It makes a lot of sense, but it's not something we think about here.
The final design called for the tunnel to divide into 4 sections, separated from each other by 3 massive caves inside the mountain. These were meant to give drivers an opportunity to stop, stretch out, or take a rest. If they were dealing with such intense claustrophobia that they were beginning to regret entering the tunnel, they would have the opportunity to turn around at the first cave, rather than having to carry on the entire way or try turning around in the middle of the road.
Whoa! You guys are so smart. Oh my god. You create and thoughtful about people and how they feel doing this. I feel like none of this would be a consideration. If they did this in America, we would do this completely wrong. And it'd probably take us 100 years. Oh my god. So you have giant areas in the tunnel, caves, where people can stop, relax, turn around. But of course, that makes so much sense when you say it. That's so smart.
First cave, rather than having to carry on the entire way or try turning around in the middle of the road. The tunnel would be lit with blue and yellow lights meant to simulate a rising sun, alternating back and forth with stretches of white light meant to wake people up. Fire extinguishers.
You even thought about the lighting. You even thought about the lighting in a certain way. Oh my god.
Turning areas, kilometer markers, and emergency stop-offs would also be clearly marked, both to stop people from getting too nervous and to continue to spruce up the interior of the tunnel to keep people from nodding off in the low light. Taken together, the design group hoped that the tunnel passage would be pleasant for drivers and also keep those drivers operating their vehicles without creating risk for someone else.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot to think about with a tunnel this big. This is very ambitious. Construction and challenges. I would have thought this was impossible. But so I'm really curious to see how you constructed this. How do you even do this?
The construction of the tunnel took place in 4 phases: drilling, blasting, loading, and landscaping. The process had to be extremely precise, especially the
God.
blasting element, since construction that dug into the mountain from both sides would have to meet up in the middle.
You start on both sides, and you have to perfectly meet in the middle. 7.5 miles in the middle. Perfectly. with explosions. How? What?
Full kilometre underground and 10 kilometres inward from either direction. It's difficult to express how hard this would be to do analog, but you could basically imagine a couple of blindfolded archers trying to shoot their arrows directly towards one another, hoping that the arrows would collide head-on in mid-air. That's before we even consider that Norway wasn't attempting a straight shot. Instead, they would have to climb some 260 metres in the process, while including bends and turns in the tunnel design. Of course, by the 1990s, neither Norway nor any other developed nation would have to do this sort of thing in analog. Instead, Norway used computer-controlled jumbo drills paired with traditional drill and blast techniques.
Okay, good. This is like a modern thing, kinda. You guys had computers, and I didn't know how long ago this was built. You guys had computer guidance systems and all that. Okay. Otherwise, I was like, how could you do this just by eye? It's impossible.
Navigation satellites to guide their path into the mountain.
Even satellites.
Those bins were used to keep the bearings of the tunnel, and a computer-controlled mechanism used this laser data to automatically position drilling equipment for the major boring process. Other parts of the tunnel were dealt with the old-fashioned way by drilling some holes in the rock, sticking dynamite in them, and trucking out the debris.
So in Norway, you guys have a lot of tunnels, right? So you've gotten very, very, very good at this. So it makes sense this is in Norway. It's still such an incredible feat of human engineering. This is very underrated, because I think a lot of Americans have never even heard of this before. I didn't know anything about this, so this deserves more credit.
The process was not without some issues. Because of the immense pressure that the mountain above exerts on the tunnel structure, rock bursts were not uncommon. At one point during construction, weakness in the mountain's interior caused about 1,000 cubic meters of rock to fall from the tunnel's ceiling. This required a major recalibration, as the entire affected area had to be filled with concrete and the tunnel rerouted.
That's terrifying. Terrifying. You guys have to be absolutely 100% certain with everything you do, because the whole tunnel could just cave in if you do it wrong, right? But it sounds like everything, it's still intact today, right? So it seems like everything's fine.
Fortunately, nobody was hurt. Once rock was dislodged within the tunnels, it was brought out in dump trucks that used fresh new road inside, which was being constructed just a little way behind where the blasting was taking place. Once the tunnel was blasted and the road was paved, more workers followed behind, touching up the tunnel walls, blasting out the 3 main caverns, and installing all the lighting, signage, and other equipment.
How long did this take? How expensive was this? I hope they say.
To make a functioning road. The whole process moved along at a pace of about 60 to 70 meters per week, moving inward at each face of the tunnel. The biggest challenge in constructing the tunnel was figuring out what to do with all that extra rock. The project excavated a total of 2.5 million cubic meters from the mountain, which, if you remember, couldn't just be scattered around the landscape that Norway was trying to preserve. Instead, the builders decided to construct a secondary access tunnel about 2 kilometers long, which fed out the side of the mountain into a little valley known as Laerdal.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Is this like for emergencies, or? I guess it's just good practice to make sure there's always a third exit. Oh, okay.
Here, this metric fuck-ton of rocks can sit safely tucked away with no risk that the debris would pollute local waterways.
And that's where they put all the rock that was dug up.
Ventilation was a second obstacle in the tunnel. After all, even if a constant stiff breeze from one end could reliably keep air moving through 24 kilometers of caves, that does very little about all the noxious pollutants that cars leave behind as they pass through. The tunnel uses a single air exhaust shaft with an air quality treatment plant, the first in the world to be dedicated to a single road tunnel.
You are blowing my mind with how much technology Norwegians have for tunnels. Like, you even have to think about air circulation. Like, this is so beyond anything, like, Americans have done with tunnels. Like, this is I didn't know any of this.
housed in a small side tunnel that filters out major pollutants. This allows the tunnels not to draw on too much power, and while a person probably shouldn't hang out sucking fumes at the side of the road all day, the air quality is consistently monitored so that it doesn't pose any risk of harm if a person, say, wanted their windows down while driving through. Finally, fire and emergency preparedness took on the highest importance when finishing up the tunnel. In
Right.
enclosed spaces like road tunnels with limited oxygen, no room to turn around, and very little space to disperse a fire, flames can burn with an extreme intensity, and flashover combustion within clouds of smoke becomes far more likely.
What? I didn't know tunnels were extra dangerous for fire. Oh my god, tunnels are scary. I don't know. But this thing is awesome. Like, let's be honest here. And obviously, Norwegians have thought about every little last thing.
The year before the Laerdal tunnel was opened, 39 people died in a fire in the Mont Blanc tunnel in France, and a year after it opened, a fire claimed 11 lives in Switzerland's Gotthard Road tunnel.
Oh my, I didn't know this was actually a danger. Fire in tunnels. Huh.
So when it came to the Laerdal tunnel, Norway wasn't willing to cut corners. The dry rock around the tunnel and its fire-resistant cladding were a good start, and advanced monitoring technology was installed all up and down the tunnel to ensure that any problems with the ventilation systems, emergency equipment, lighting or traffic signals would be known as soon as they happened.
Wow.
Fire extinguishers and emergency telephones are set up at uncommonly short intervals, and the tunnel is set up for rapid closure and evacuation should it ever be needed.
This is like the most technologically advanced tunnel ever, maybe. You guys have sensors detecting if anything goes wrong, extra areas for help and escape, lighting, certain design features to make sure people are attentive and awake. This is the most advanced tunnel ever that man has ever made.
Upon its completion, the Laerdal Tunnel became the longest road tunnel in the world. The tunnel is 24.5 kilometers long, 9 meters wide, with a peak interior elevation of 265 meters, running at a 2.5% grade for most of the way through.
It actually looks awesome, too. Like, in America, our tunnels are all very smooth. I think smoothed off with perfect flat edges and concrete. Our tunnels look like rectangles, if you know what I mean. Norwegian tunnels look natural. You even make your tunnels look cooler.
Reinforced by 200,000 rock bolts and 45,000 cubic meters of shotcrete, the tunnel is safe, sturdy, and well insulated against collapse.
Wow.
In 2019, the tunnel saw just over 2,000 vehicles per day, and in the years since it opened in September 1999, only a handful of accidents have taken place. One of those, just before the opening day of the tunnel, put its fire preparedness to the test. A bus with about 50 passengers caught fire while deep inside the mountain, but no one was hurt, and the bus was eventually able to leave under its own power. That's not to say
So there have been accidents in the tunnel. It's inevitable. But all the safety features are working, so it's actually kind of reassuring.
that the tunnel hasn't had its problems. Speeding has become commonplace inside, either by drivers who lose focus and begin to lose track of how fast they're going, or by people who take advantage of the tunnel's relative emptiness and seclusion. In response, Norway has installed speed cameras inside and set up photo inspections and automatic measures to keep track of all the vehicles moving in and out. When crashes do occur, it can take emergency vehicles a long time to reach the victim's location, and there have been several fatalities due to crashes in the last several decades. But all things considered, the tunnel is seen in Norway as a safe, reliable section of road. It's become a tourist attraction all its own.
Yeah, seriously, like, this sounds like something you would want to visit just to see for yourself. It has a very, very practical purpose. It's to help people travel between Bergen and Oslo, it sounds like. But it's also just, what a feat. It like makes me proud to be a human, to see this.
And it's even hosted the occasional wedding. Those who drive through the tunnel often remark on the peace of mind granted to them by Norway's design choices, pointing out that although it may be easy to feel claustrophobic or threatened in such a small space, the cabins and clear emergency preparedness really do help drivers to stay calm and collected. Travellers also point out the strange, almost forlorn beauty of the three main cabins and the unique feeling of travelling so far while feeling so acutely aware that an entire mountain lies overhead. For the people of Norway...
Seriously. Like, it's funny to think there's an entire mountain on top of this. But Norway has done such a great job of taking all the fear out of it and actually making it a beautiful, almost like exciting, calming experience. That's amazing. Yeah, so I had heard of this tunnel and I didn't really know anything about it. It's really long, but there's so much else to it, so much else that went into the creation of it and the design. This really taught me about how much Norwegians know about tunnel making. And it's so cool and it makes so much sense that Norway built this amazing tunnel, the biggest tunnel, the road tunnel in the world. So this is really cool. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on the Laerdal tunnel. If you've ever been to this tunnel, that'd be cool to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and seeing Norwegian things I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.